volley of stones through an apparently inaccessible window, or possibly a brickbat on the manufacturer's own head. If it's a streetcar strike, it means tracks torn up or barricaded with the contents of ash carts and slop carts, with overturned wagons or stolen fences. It means smashed or incinerated cars and turn switches. If it is a System Federation strike, it means dead engines, wild engines, derailed freights, and stalled trains. If it is a building trade strike, it means dynamited structures. And always, everywhere, all the time, fights between strikebreakers and scabs against strikers and strike sympathizers, between people and police. On the side of the bosses, it means searchlights, electric wires, stockades, bullpens, detectives and provocative agents, violent kidnapping and deportation, and every device they can conceive for direct protection, besides the ultimate invocation of police, militia, state constabulary, and federal troops. Everybody knows this. Everybody smiles when union officials protest their organizations to be peaceable and law-abiding, because everybody knows they are lying. They know that violence is used, both secretly and openly, and they know it is used because the strikers cannot do any other way, without giving up the fight at once. Nor do they mistake those who thus resort to violence under stress for destructive miscreants who do what they do out of innate cussedness. The people in general understand that they do these things through the harsh logic of a situation which they did not create, but which forces them to those attacks in order to make good in their struggle to live or else go down the bottomless descent into poverty, that lets death find them in the poorhouse hospital, the city street, or the river slime. This is the awful alternative that the workers are facing, and this is what makes the most kindly disposed human beings, men who would go out of their way to help a wounded dog, or bring home a stray kitten and nurse it, or step aside to avoid walking on a worm, resort to violence against their fellow men. They know, for the facts have taught them, that this is the only way to win, if they can win at all. And it has always appeared to me one of the most utterly ludicrous, absolutely irrelevant things that a person can do or say, when approached for relief or assistance by a striker who is dealing with an immediate situation, to respond with "vote yourself into power," when the next election is 6 months, a year, or 2 years away. Unfortunately, the people who know best how violence is used in union warfare cannot come forward and say, on such a day, at such a place, such and such specific action was done, and as a result such and such concession was made, or such and such boss capitulated. To do so would imperil their liberty and their power to go on fighting. Therefore those that know best must keep silent and sneer in their sleeves, while those that know little prate. Events, not tongues, must make their position clear. And there has been a very great deal of prating these last few weeks. Speakers and writers, honestly convinced I believe that political action and political action only can win the workers' battle, have been denouncing what they are pleased to call direct action. What they really mean is conspiratorial violence, as the author of Mischief Incalculable, one Oscar Maringer, as an example, recently said at a meeting in Chicago that the Haymarket bomb of '86 had set back the 8-hour movement 25 years, arguing that the movement would have succeeded but for the bomb. It's a great mistake. No one can exactly measure in years or months the effect of a forward push or reaction. No one can demonstrate that the 8-hour movement could have been won 25 years ago. We know that the 8-hour day was put on the statute books of Illinois in 1871 by political action, and has remained a dead letter. That the direct action of the workers could have won it, then, cannot be proved, but it can be shown that many more potent factors than the Haymarket bomb worked against it. On the other hand, if the reactive influence of the bomb was really so powerful, we should naturally expect labor and union conditions to be worse in Chicago than in the cities where no such thing happened. On the contrary, bad as they are, the general conditions of labor are better in Chicago than in most other large cities, and the power of the unions is more developed there than in any other American city except San Francisco. So if we are to conclude anything for the influence of the Haymarket bomb, keep these facts in mind. Personally, I do not think its influence on the labor movement, as such, was so very great. It will be the same with the present furor about violence. Nothing fundamental has been altered. 2 men have been imprisoned for what they did. 24 years ago they were hanged for what they did not do. Some few more may yet be imprisoned. But the forces of life will continue to revolt against their economic chains. There will be no cessation in that revolt, no matter what ticket men vote or fail to vote, until the chains are broken. How will the chains be broken? Political actionists tell us it will be only by means of working-class party action at the polls, by voting themselves into possession of the sources of life and the tools, by voting that those who now command forests, mines, ranches, waterways, mills, and factories, and likewise command the military power to defend them, shall hand over their dominion to the people. And meanwhile, be peaceable, industrious, law-abiding, patient, and frugal, as Madero told the Mexican peons to be, after he sold them to Wall Street. Even if some of you are disenfranchised, don't rise up even against that, for it might set back the party. Well, I have already stated that some good is occasionally accomplished by political action, not necessarily working-class party action either. But I am abundantly convinced that the occasional good accomplished is more than counterbalanced by the evil, just as I am convinced that though there are occasional evils resulting through direct action, they are more than counterbalanced by the good. Nearly all the laws which were originally framed with the intention of benefiting the workers, have either turned into weapons in their enemies' hands, or become dead letters unless the workers through their organizations have directly enforced their observance. So that in the end, it is direct action that has to be relied on anyway. As an example of getting the tar dent of a law, glance at the antitrust law, which was supposed to benefit the people in general and the working class in particular. About 2 weeks since, some 250 union leaders were cited to answer to the charge of being trust formers, as the answer of the Illinois Central to its strikers. But the evil of pinning faith to indirect action is far greater than any such minor results. The main evil is that it destroys initiative, quenches the individual rebellious spirit, teaches people to rely on someone else to do for them what they should do for themselves, finally renders organic the anomalous idea that by massing supineness together until a majority is acquired, then through the peculiar magic of that majority, this supineness is to be transformed into energy. That is, people who have lost the habit of striking for themselves as individuals, who have submitted to every injustice while waiting for the majority to grow, are going to become metamorphosed into human high explosives by a mere process of packing. I quite agree that the sources of life, and all the natural wealth of the earth, and the tools necessary to cooperative production, must become freely accessible to all. It is a positive certainty to me that unionism must widen and deepen its purposes, or it will go under, and I feel sure that the logic of the situation will gradually force them to see it. They must learn that the workers' problem can never be solved by beating up scabs, so long as their own policy of limiting their membership by high initiation fees and other restrictions helps to make scabs. They must learn that the course of growth is not so much along the line of higher wages, but shorter hours, which will enable them to increase membership, to take in everybody who is willing to come into the union. They must learn that if they want to win battles, all allied workers must act together, act quickly, serving no notice on bosses, and retain their freedom to do so at all times. And finally they must learn that even then, when they have a complete organization, they can win nothing permanent unless they strike for everything, not for a wage, not for a minor improvement, but for the whole natural wealth of the earth, and proceed to the direct expropriation of it all. They must learn that their power does not lie in their voting strength, that their power lies in their ability to stop production. It is a great mistake to suppose that the wage earners constitute a majority of the voters. Wage earners are here today and there tomorrow, and that hinders a large number from voting. A great percentage of them in this country are foreigners without a voting right. The most patent proof that socialist leaders know this is so, is that they are compromising their propaganda at every point to win the support of the business class, the small investor. The campaign papers proclaim that their interviewers had been assured by Wall Street bond purchasers that they would be just as ready to buy Los Angeles bonds from a socialist as a capitalist administrator, that the present Milwaukee administration has been a boon to the small investor. The reading notices assure the readers in this city that we need not go to the great department stores to buy a rather of so and so on Milwaukee Avenue, who will satisfy us quite as well as a big business institution. In short, they are making every desperate effort to win the support and to prolong the life of that middle class which socialist economy says must be ground to pieces, because they know they cannot get a majority without them. The most that a working class party could do, even if its politicians remained honest, would be to form a strong faction in the legislatures which might, by combining its vote with one side or another, win certain political or economic palliatives. But what the working class can do, when once they grow into a solidified organization, is to show the possessing class, through a sudden cessation of all work, that their whole social structure rests on them, that the possessions of the others are absolutely worthless to them without the workers' activity, that such protests, such strikes, are inherent in the system of property and will continually recur until the whole thing is abolished, and having shown that effectively, proceed to expropriate. But the military power, says the political actionist, we must get political power, or the military will be used against us. Against a real general strike, the military can do nothing. Oh, true, if you have a socialist brain in power, he may declare the workers public officials and try to make them serve against themselves. But against the solid wall of an immobile working mass, even a brain would be broken. Meanwhile, until this international awakening, the war will go on as it had been going, in spite of all the hysteria which well-meaning people who do not understand life and its necessities may manifest, in spite of all the shivering that timid leaders have done, in spite of all the reactionary revenges that may be taken, in spite of all the capital that politicians make out of this situation. It will go on because life cries to live, and property denies its freedom to live, and life will not submit. And should not submit. It will go on until that day when a self-freed humanity is able to chant Swinburne's hymn of man. Glory to man in the highest, for man is the master of things,